You know, one thing we hear a lot about in the gun community is how we got to have common sense gun laws. Well, the problem with these common sense gun laws is that they're very seldomly common sense things. For something to be common sense, it actually has to make sense and it has to be effective. Most gun laws are neither of those things. But you know, there are some things we can agree on that are common sense gun laws, right? Like I think everyone can agree that a background check is a common sense gun law. That we don't want people being able to go out and just buy a gun and exercise their Second Amendment right without filling out a form and going through a background check with the government first. You know, got to make sure they're not a bad guy, right? Wrong. I don't agree with background checks. So I know that kind of makes me sound like a zealot or a far right winger or some sort of crazy gun nut, but I don't agree with background checks because they don't work. There's never evidence that a background check has ever stopped a crime. There hasn't been any evidence of that, period. Now, I know they love to say, well, Nick stopped this many thousands of people from buying a gun that shouldn't have bought the gun. And of course, then they forget to tell you that, 90-something% of that was false positives who we had to later overturn on appeal, and all we did was really inconvenience someone who's a good law-abiding citizen, didn't really stop a bad guy. In fact, when you look at the numbers of crimes committed with guns, especially if you look at mass murders, which people love to do so much, if you buy a gun privately, in most states, you don't have a background check. But in those states and nationwide, guns bought private sale with no background checks aren't used at any higher rate than guns bought legally with a background check. In fact, much lower rate. The vast majority of guns used in crimes, especially mass killings that people love so much, were bought legally with a background check. The person hadn't committed a crime at the time they bought the gun. So the whole notion that background checks are stopping crime, it's just garbage. They don't. There's no evidence of it whatsoever. Plus, they're so easy to get around. Bad guys don't go without guns because there's a 4473 form. That's just not a reality. Bad guys get guns illegally. They buy them from other bad guys. They steal them, which the 4473, you could easily make the argument that it encourages theft of firearms more than it does anything else. So they steal them. And another way they get handguns is straw purchase. It's not a hard thing for someone that's a bad guy to find another bad guy or a person who's willing to associate with them that'll fill out the form and buy the gun for them. Believe me, I've been in a lot of times where I've been in a gun shop and they're like, are you really buying this gun for yourself, or are you buying this gun for the guy who just came in with you and pointed out everything about the gun that he wanted? It's not hard to do that. Now, the really stupid ones, like those ones, get caught, but majority won't get caught. So it's really nothing that stops any bad guy from having a gun. It just doesn't. And like I said, most people that commit crimes with guns haven't committed a crime at the time they bought the gun. So it's not really going to stop any significant number of crime. And here's another thing you got to remember. The people that are felons that it prevents from buying a gun, that doesn't mean that they're a bad guy who's going to commit a crime with that gun. So if they say, aha, we stopped this felon from buying a gun, therefore we stopped the crime, that doesn't make sense. That's not a scientific analysis of the situation, because the vast majority of people that were felons that would try to buy a gun, especially the ones that actually get caught on a form, are not people that were going to commit a crime with it. I personally know someone, and this goes back to the straw purchases too, who committed a felony when he was 17 years old. A non-violent felony, but a felony. And therefore he could not own guns. He was in his 40s when I knew him. He would have his wife buy all of his guns because he couldn't buy one. He didn't go commit crimes with them. If he'd have tried to fill it for him, he'd been stopped. So that's a fallacy right there too, that every time someone who's a felon gets stopped from buying a gun, that's a crime that was prevented. That's a ridiculous statement. So when you really look at background checks, they don't really stop bad guys from getting guns. It just encourages them to get them in other ways. There's so many of them around, you're not going to stop them. And you're not going to stop people who are good guys at the time they buy them from doing bad things later. So background checks really don't serve a purpose. Now this is where people start screaming like, we can't let violent felons buy guns. And then I go back to my argument of, if someone's a violent felon that can't be trusted in society, they've already proven they're a violent person that can't be trusted, they shouldn't be out of prison. Period. They should be locked away. If we had a prison system that kept bad guys separated from good guys once they proved they're bad guys, we wouldn't need ridiculous safety nets like background checks that really don't do anything anyway. All background checks do is disenfranchise people who don't want to go through the process and don't want to have a paper trail, etc., whatever, for whatever reason they have. And they inconvenience good law-abiding citizens. Like, I got delayed today. I went down to pick up a gun, all happy and excited, went down there, like, woohoo, going to go get a new gun. Get there, nope. They don't let me take it home, because they got to make sure that I'm not going to go out and harm some people with that gun. I definitely couldn't use the other 130 something guns I have at home. So they're keeping the world safe by keeping me from getting that one. If anyone wants to guess what gun I went to pick up, go ahead and guess. I'll give you a hint. It completes a collection for me. And like I said in an Instagram post today, though, people from Sporting Systems and Iraq veteran 88888888 can't guess because you guys already know, so you can't guess. But like I say, went in, I got all in a snit because can't take my gun home today. So now I live an hour from the gun shop, so now I got to drive home and then drive back again. If someone's poor and they've been saving for a long time to buy that gun, and then that happens to them, that's a real problem for someone who can barely afford the gas to get there in the first place. They've saved for a year to buy their gun, they finally get it, and they're told, oh yeah, go home and come back in a few days. When they may have had to take time off, get a babysitter or whatever to get there on a day where the gun shop's open and pay gas money, take time out of their work, etc. to get there, and now they have to come back again. That's a negative thing for a lot of law-abiding people. And plus, there's also, like I said, no instances where they can prove that a background check stopped a crime, but there's multiple instances where someone went in to buy a gun because, like a woman, I believe it was New Jersey or Florida, I can't remember which one right now, but she went in to buy a gun because her ex-husband was threatening her life. She got delayed. 2 days later, she was stabbed to death in her own driveway by her ex-husband before she could pick up the gun. And that's not just the only case. There's multiple cases like that. So you can actually show that background checks have cost lives, but you can't show that they've saved any lives or stopped any crimes. So why are we going through them? If the reason we go through them is because, there's so many bad guys out there wanting to buy guns and commit crimes with them, and we want to pretend they can't get them other ways, well, here's a better idea. Lock up the bad guys. Don't let them out. Once they've proven they're a bad guy, don't let them out. And you might say, well, what about the ones that aren't bad yet? Well, we don't get to play preemptive judgment on people like that. We don't get to strip people of their rights because we think they might do something wrong or it looks like they might do something wrong. That means we shouldn't even have background checks then because we shouldn't have a country because we're the wrong type of people if we start doing that stuff. So this has been a pretty long rant and I've vented quite a bit here, but I just want to end in saying, like I said, I don't agree with background checks. I don't think they're reasonable or they're common sense. I just think they are an infringement on our rights with no benefit. So I, for one, am not for background checks at all. No, I don't agree with that at all. Don't agree at all with it. A little too far. Common sense. But good guys turning to bad guys, whatever you want, however you want to look at it. Fuck, I just fucked this up really good. Gun laws. That we should all have restrictions in most people. No. Background checks are reasonable because I don't think they're reasonable. And this doesn't make any sense. Oops.
Go ahead. It's a lady at 46 South Rose. 46 South Rose.
Station 1 call, retone that police. 10-4. Captain 4 to go to that location also. This is 1-9, is that correct?
Sorry, one left.